surface.
He didn't know where he was, what he was going to do. I gave him examples on Ezra Charles that killed a guy in the ring and other fighters. And, you know, then he felt like he could continue again because the Esakov family also told him that they wanted him to go on. If their son was alive, he'd want Willie to go on fighting. And I think that's what sort of motivated him again. But it definitely had the effect. I should know I was in his corner for the majority of his fights. And you could see every time he shook a guy, he let him off the hook. He let him off. He boxed his way. He was such a good boxer that he could, you know, stagger a guy and then still just outbox him and win the fight without sort of knocking him out.
After an impressive victory over Richie Howard, the Toweels set off on a campaign in England, where they joined forces with the influential agent Bobby Diamond and the promoter Harry Levine. Willie started off with a magnificent performance, defending his Empire title successfully against the British champion Dave Charnley. The British fight fans adopted Willie as one of their own, and he responded with one virtuoso performance after another. His victory over Jimmy Carter, the former world champion, on October the 8th, 1957 was particularly impressive. And he was freely tipped to win the world title within the next 12 months.
When Willie went to challenge Joe Brown, we got the letter to say that they would give us a world title fight. But the title has to stay in the family. In other words, if Willie won, the family would control him, whoever they were. And at that time, I think Viscusi was the manager of Joe Brown. I didn't know him then like I knew him when I was with Foster. And that's a lot of years later, it was about nearly 20 years later. And I gave Willie the option. I said to him, Willie, this is your chance. You waited for this chance. You can take it. Don't worry about me as your manager. As long as you've got Alan as your trainer, they'll look after you, and if you win the title, they'll be looking after you. And Willie said, I started with you, you've got me so far. If you can't manage me when I'm world champion, then I'd rather not be a world champion.
Willie defeated the world-rated Mexican Al Nevares over 10 rounds. And on returning to England, scored 2 more victories before losing in an upset to Guy Gracia of France, only his second defeat in a career which already spanned 5 years. After a 2-month layoff, Willie returned to the ring and demolished Tony Garcia in Cape Town before winning a return bout against Guy Gracia.
Came in for a terrible pounding, strapped by jet fighters, jackhammers, kicking mules, Springbok rugby forwards and lots besides, from a quiet-spoken, perfect little sportsman by the name of Willie Toweel. Belted and battered, Garcia slumped to the floor, then courageously rose for further punishment. Willie showed us something he has previously lacked, the merciless approach so essential to a professional world-class fighter. Gone was the fine calculation of points, and the French boxer was the first victim of the new Willie Toweel, taking the hard road back to World Championship recognition. There was jubilation in the Toweel family, and Willie's comeback shows that he approaches the task ahead with a completely new outlook, which suggests that at last he's a world champion in the making.
Weakened by drastic weight reduction, Willie lost his Empire title to Dave Charnley on a 10th round knockout. His reputation wasn't harmed, however, and he set off to make his debut in the United States.
38 degrees in the arc and clear.
He entered the ring against the world-rated Lenny Matthews at Madison Square Garden on November the 20th, 1959, a hopeless 3-1 underdog. But Willie Toweel put up one of the finest performances of skill and courage ever in the history of world boxing.
You notice increasing frequency of
At the end of the 7th round, Willie was ahead on points.
Before the fight, we worked out in a hotel room, and I warned him that Matthews is a 3-punch combination puncher, and you got a habit of pulling back. And I said, you might make him miss with the left and the right, but when that left hook comes, if you pull back, he's going to connect, and he's a dynamic puncher. That's exactly what happened. As he started off the combination, Willie ducked the 2 punches, but pulled back the 3rd, and Matthews caught him with the left hook, and he went down.
5, 6, 7, 8. A minute and a half to go in round 8. To go in round 8. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 35 seconds to go. The fight will be automatically over if there's another knockdown.
Willie was in a real bad way. And I said to him, look, are you listening? He said, yes. I said, please, for our country and for our family, you have to stand up. And I said, this guy is going to rush out at you. Make no mistake. He's coming out to knock you out. But get in there. And before he can come to you, get to him and pound him. Even if you throw feeble punches, put him off until you get yourself right. And I'm telling you, as he got up, you know, when they said seconds out, he got up, he was still looking and he's saying, yes, okay, you know, but you could see he was a bit shaky. And he went out. And he met Matthews right in his corner. And he started doing the punching. And that turned the whole fight around.
Wants to make sure of it. Listen to this crowd. They are really stirred up. It's the liveliest fight crowd we've had here in a long time. 10 seconds to go. The crowd is cheering as they watch that second hand. They're on their feet, a lot of them behind us here and in front. Boy, that Toweel made a great start. Got off the canvas, big smile on his face. Smile on both fighters' faces. And Matthews went over and shook hands with the brother. We'll have the decision in just a moment.
The American public and press went wild with admiration, claiming there hasn't been a boxer as good as this South African smoothie since Willie Pep was dazzling the fans and his opponents. Willie Toweel moved like Sugar Ray Robinson in his prime. Toweel, the master craftsman, and South Africa's man of courage.
And boy, they love him here. He is really... He's just, with that big smile, he has just worked his way into the hearts of these people. Here's Johnny Eddie.
Harry Evans. 5, 4, 1 even. Favor of Toweel.
Willie had 5 more fights, losing his last to Emil Griffith, a future holder of 2 world titles. And then he called it a day at the age of 26. Willie Toweel, the stuff that champions are made of. In the next episode of The Fighters, a Pretoria panel beater holds his own with the best in the world.
En dan my beste, Ludecke.
Seven world champions, 6 Olympic gold medalists, 9 empire titles, and a host of boxing heroes. The Champions Arena, man against man. The ultimate test of strength, cunning, and courage. Join us now as we trace the path of boxing in South Africa from its birth up to our modern era of The Fighters. The 1950s saw the veteran marathon runner Willie Hayward winning the Comrades Marathon for the 4th time at the age of 45. Tessie O'Shea, better known as Two-Ton Tessie, the world-famous comedian, arrived in South Africa to the amusement of all who met and saw her. And Mike Holt, one of the most flamboyant personalities in South African boxing history, was dominating the ring. For more than 12 years, this hawk-faced panel beater whipped audiences into a state of hysteria by simply acknowledging their acclaim. He rarely disappointed his fans, whether he landed that devastating left hook or whether he felt that the referee was too hasty in pulling him off his helpless prey.
Man, ja, ek sê, daar was altyd 'n bietjie excitement as ek beklei, jy weet. Ek het as ek die ref slaan nie, dan as ek in die ring kom sit, jy weet in die hoek as die ronde ophou. As hulle emmer aan die linkerkant hou, dan spoeg ek die water aan die regterkant uit. En as hulle aan die regterkant hou, spoeg ek die water aan die linkerkant uit. En die ous, die presous, die mense wat altyd hierdie langs die ring na by my gesit het, het naderhand weggeskuif of met sombrelle gekom het. Jy weet so, ek het altyd iets snaaks gedoen.
One of Holt's contemporaries was Benny Nieuwenhuizen, an extremely talented fighter who boasted a very impressive amateur record. He beat Mighty Mike twice early in his career, and there were high hopes for his future. Unfortunately, he was seldom properly conditioned and paid the price for lack of dedication. He challenged George Barnes unsuccessfully for the Empire welterweight title and never rose to great heights. Holt, on the other hand, while having his fun, never neglected his training, putting in a solid 6 hours a day, and consequently held his own among the best middle and light heavyweights of the day. The name of Eddie Thomas will forever be linked with that of Mike Holt. They met in 3 of the most bitterly fought battles in the annals of boxing history. Thomas, who had grown up in a world of violence and gang warfare, was a good boxer with a terrific punch and a highly developed killer instinct.
En dan precies een minuut 4 seconden na die eerste gang stuurt Thomas een linker naar die kop toe en een rechter en Scott weet die stop.
Among his victims was the former world-rated fighter and Empire champion Gerald Dreyer, who was in the process of making an ill-advised comeback. Thomas won the national welterweight title from the competent but disinterested Pat Patrick, and then moved up to take the middleweight crown, which was vacated by Jimmy Elliott by knocking out Joe Monroe in the 12th round.
It was a courageous last stand, ending when a left hook had him down. Instinctively, Dreyer rose, but his eyes were glazed and his guard non-existent. The referee stopped the fight to save Gerald Dreyer from further punishment. And a jubilant Eddie Thomas won on a technical knockout.
Holt was a last-minute replacement the first time they met, but he gave the defending champion a torrid time before succumbing to a vicious body attack in the 6th round. Their return bout a few months later, on December the 6th, 1954, was a breathtaking struggle between 2 vicious punchers hell-bent on establishing supremacy. It ended with Thomas being knocked out in the last round. Nearly 24 stitches were needed to repair his face, and as many hours for him to regain full consciousness. Yet, less than 3 months later, they were again locked in a battle of attrition. The referee stepped in and stopped the fight in the 12th round, awarding it to Holt. These 3 classic Stone Age encounters, for all intents, ended Thomas's promising career.
Thomas was miskien, jy weet, te vroeg in my loopbaan. Soos ek vir al die ou sê, as ek hom nie so vroeg betleed nie, het ek dalk vandag nog, jy weet, 'n kans gehad om weer te boks.
Jimmy Elliott, an attractive stylist in the ring and a charming gentleman outside it, was generally rated above Holt. He was an excellent boxer, intelligent and fearless. He previously won the national middleweight title by beating the veteran Dougie Miller. He relinquished his title after suffering a detached retina, but returned to the ring after undergoing an eye operation.
Jimmy Elliott klim deur die toue om Mike Holt, die Suid-Afrikaanse middelgewigkampioen, aan te durf in 'n 12-ronde geveg in die Olympia skaatsaal by Johannesburg. In die eerste ronde was dit Elliott, die voormalige nasionale middelgewigkampioen, wat die aanvalwerk gedoen het en die huidige kampioen op die verdediging gestel het. In die tweede ronde het Holt uitgehaal so wat hy kon en met 'n kort linker sy teenstander op die naad van sy rug laat beland en hom vir 6 tellings op die planke laat lê. Na afloop van die geveg is vasgestel dat 'n beentjie in Elliott se neus gebreek is toe Holt hom neergevel het. Dit verklaar waarom Elliott na sy mooi wegspringpoging skielik net begin verdedig en gaandeweg al minder aangeval het. Hy het bloot sy neus beskerm en die meeste houe met sy handskoene en arms gekeer. Hierdie taak van hom is egter vergemaklik deurdat Holt bloot sy krag en vegtersinstink wil laat geld in plaas van om sy kanse kalm af te wag. Die 2 boksers het gaandeweg al hoe meer aan mekaar begin hang en slegs af en toe met kort sarsies op lang afstand probeer sla uitdeel. 'n Groot deel van die bokspubliek was ontevrede oor die beslissing dat Holt met punte gewen het, maar hierdie rolprent is 'n goeie oorsig en gee die geleentheid om self te oordeel. Na die gong vir die laaste keer geslaan is, het die skeieregter Willie Smith Mike Holt se arm omhoog gelig om aan te dui dat hy die wenner is en nog steeds die nasionale kampioen.
Holt's victory over Elliott earned him a shot at Pat McAteer, the Empire middleweight.
Title from Pat McAteer of Birkenhead. McAteer has won all 39 of his professional fights and intends to make it 40 in a row. Both men are supremely confident. The fight opened with the feeling out process. McAteer on the right is a fluid, stylish boxer and staged the opening sally. The first round ended even, but the British Empire champion started to build up a points lead in the second. McAteer comes out of the corner with a right, then ties his opponent up. It was noticeable that the British lad dictated the fight for most of the time, while Holt took advantage of the chances presented. Spectators were expecting Holt to make a tear-away, all-out effort. That's what he needed to win. But the effort came too late, and after 15 mauling rounds, held little sting. McAteer tied him up, and at the final gong, his greater experience was the deciding factor.
Holt's loss to the more experienced McAteer did nothing to harm his popularity. And he made amends by thoroughly beating the American veteran Garth Panther.
En die Amerikaner het begin besef dat al uitkomkaas 'n uitklophou sou wees. Holt was echter so vinnig soos 'n vetgesmeerde blits. En vir elke slag van Panther het hy 6 of 7 keer sy vuiste ingelê. Holt het oortuigend met punte gewen.
George Barnes, the ring-wise Australian Empire welterweight champion, arrived in South Africa to take on the panel beater from Pretoria.
George Barnes of Australia on the right meets Mike Holt of South Africa in a catchweight contest in Johannesburg. And the Australian is the first to go in. Barnes' answer to Holt's greater height, reach and weight was to ride his punches cleverly, while Holt fought most of the fight from the center of the ring position. For the first 6 rounds, the scoring was fairly even. Round 7 brought drama. Barnes was putting up a clever display, but at this stage, the South African's weight advantage was beginning to tell. Feeling that the tide of battle was beginning to turn in his favor, Mike Holt went in, but Barnes caught him with a real short one, and the South African middleweight champion is down for a count of 7. In the final round, Mike Holt stormed after his man, but Barnes' superb boxing and ringcraft saw him through. He'd given away too much weight and height, and the old boxing adage of a good big un beating a good little un again proved true. To Holt the victory, to his plucky opponent honor in defeat.
Jimmy Elliott proved victorious in a return bout with Holt, but collapsed after receiving the decision. He was hospitalized and advised to give up boxing. But he returned to the ring and on the 4th of May 1957 climbed through the ropes to meet Pat McAteer for the Empire middleweight title. At this time, Elliott had trouble with his peripheral vision and couldn't defend himself. He was knocked out in the 6th round. He rose to his feet, collapsed, and tragically died a few hours later. Holt spent the first few months of 1957 in Australia, where he destroyed all who came before him.
Een paar jaar na dit begeer die Australianers se koerant my weer 'n bietjie van 'n opskrif te sê hulle ons rugbyspan het Mike Holt nodig want ek het hulle ouetjies gemord daai. Ek sê hulle nie kans teen my gehad.
Holt moved up to the light heavyweight division and won the national title by knocking out Stan Lottreet in less than a round. Gordon Wallace, who'd knocked out former world champion Randolph Turpin 2 years earlier, was Mighty Mike's first internationally known light heavyweight
Gordon
opponent.
Wallace of Canada in a light heavyweight contest staged in Johannesburg. There's a cagey opening. The Canadian tries a couple of tentative ones, and again they spar. Both men pack a hefty punch, and suddenly Holt springs a surprise. He cuts loose, and Wallace sinks to the canvas. The Canadian
The bout ended after 48 seconds in the first round. His next opponent was Tommy Duprier, who, like his younger brother Davy, in later years was a quick and heavy puncher.
En die 6de ronde is die linkerhand van Holt dodelijk. De Pre se bene begin gymnastiekerig word en hy stuur die toue. 'n posisie waarin hy nie baie gelukkig is nie. Maar de Pre het nie 'n bang haar op sy kop nie. Na so 'n paar oomblikke gesukkel met die toue, is hy op sy bene om nog meer straf te verduur. En dit is straf wat hy verduur, want Holt is 'n genadeloze vechter. Hy het nou bloed geryk en daar's niks wat hom gaan keer nie. Hy volg sy ou een na die ander op en de Pre word weer plat geslaan vir 9 tellings. 5,5 dramatische rondes en is duidelijk dat de Pre nou geen kans tegen die kampioen staat nie. Die scheidsrechter besef het en zit meteen zijn einde aan die gevecht. Een sensationele gevecht en Holt bleef Zuid-Afrika als kampioen.
Charles Connin, one of the best light heavyweights of Europe, stood up to Holt in another of those kill or be killed struggles which made Holt so popular.
Both Holt's eyes were bleeding, and soon after round 8 started, a doctor examined Colin's eye and decided they should box on. Mike Holt now hit harder than ever, and Colin took severe punishment. But the French champion was putting up a game display despite his serious handicap. He stayed as close as he could to Holt, the best tactics under the circumstances. But the end cannot be far away. Bang goes Holt's right to Colin's damaged eye. Colin staggers back. Holt follows up his helpless opponent, but referee Benjamin steps in and stops the fight. Colin totters to his corner, a game loser, leaving the South African champion the victor. But Mike Holt showed evidence of having been in a man-sized fight.
Artemio Calzavara, the reigning champion of Europe, was a world-class fighter at the peak of his powers when he took on Mike Holt. Unfortunately for him, Holt was in a destructive mood.
On the retreat. Holt has the killer instinct that makes world champions and remorselessly won the first 2 rounds. By round 3, Calzavara was poking out his left to ward off trouble. But even at close quarters, he was absorbing more punishment from the steel-fisted Holt. Round 4 followed the same pattern. Then came round 5. Mike Holt tore into his man, jolting him with one solid blow after another. Then one of his short pile drivers sent Calzavara crashing to the ropes. Referee Wilf Lubber starts the count. The Italian rises and indicates
The Italian called out bastantamente, meaning no more. Holt thought he was insulting his parentage and really wanted to climb in, giving the referee an extra hard time in stopping the fight. A few weeks later, Holt outpointed another world title contender, Yolanda Pompey, and then got a match in Canada with Yvonne Durell, in a fight which was billed as an official world title eliminator.
All over the ring, but Mike Holt, who is wearing the dark trunks, has worked out a slight lead. In round 5, Durell in the white trunks tries to come on and recover the initiative. As both men slug it out toe-to-toe, Durell gets hit with a...
Durell, who went on to give Archie Moore, the reigning world champion, a tough time in one of boxing history's classic encounters, later claimed in his biography that Holt was undoubtedly the toughest and hardest-hitting opponent he'd ever faced.
Durell and Holt seem very tired here in the final seconds of round 5. But in round 8, both men unbelievably are still pounding away. Durell gives an looping left hook that floors Holt. Holt rises somewhat dazed, but then decides to return to one knee to clear his head. Durell moves in and hits Holt before the referee can stop him. He seems confused as to whether Holt is up or down. The referee returns to the count and then tells Holt to rise. As the referee breaks a clinch and Durell moves in, the exhausted Holt tries to get him to touch gloves. The diversion only worked for an instant as Durell wades in. As the bell for round 9 sounds, Holt's handlers decide not to let him come out. And in spectacular fashion, Yvonne Durell
was hard. Nie so dat hy beter was as ek nie. Die ligdruk het my 'n bietjie gevang in Canada. Dis 'n goeie verskoning as jy verloor, maar dis tog nog een.
Holt returned to South Africa and easily outpointed Rock Maravilla of America before taking on Uwe Janssen of Germany.
Mike is full of love and kisses. The German fighter has revealed little or nothing during his pre-fight training. This might have been a cagey maneuver, and Mike Holt is acting cagey and cautious too. Mike Holt tends to be a slow starter, but tiring of the inactivity, he suddenly tears in and sends Janssen down. Cloudy-headed, the German gathers his senses, then rises. Holt seems to hang back, possibly suspecting that it might be a ruse. Then, realizing that Janssen is in genuine trouble, Holt returns to the attack, and a two-fisted sleeping draft has him down again. With a peal of bells in his head, Janssen gets up, and Mike Holt has the fight practically won. He slams home the advantage to put his opponent away in 3 minutes, 49 seconds. Peter Janssen obviously has nothing further to offer, and Mike Holt adds another notch to his record of knockout victories.
Early in 1960, Holt set off on his fourth campaign abroad. Among his many triumphs was a draw with Johnny Halafi and with Erich Schuppner, the #2 contender for the world title. Holt knocked Schuppner down, and many felt that he was a victim of a home crowd decision and deserved to win the fight. During Holt's career, he beat 3 top contenders, who afterwards went on to challenge for the world title. Holt, however, never got his shot.
Wat ek baie van gehou het, ek het sy gevecht op TV gesien, is Rocky Graciano. En toe hy die wereldtitel wen, toe gaan hy op sy knieë en toe sê hy, somebody up there likes me. Nou, met my geval, dink ek, is dit net andersom. He definitely didn't like me much, because ek het die breke gekry, maar die groot breeks is die aand, jy weet, soos die groot breeks is, as ek moet Achimur betleed, as ek die ou wat nou eerst op die wêreld op die ranglys was, gewen het, en hy betlei hom, dan voel ek 'n bietjie teleurgesteld. Wat ek voel, dit's my geveg geweest, dis nie ander nie.
Holt took time out from his busy fighting schedule to act in the feature film Kimberly Jim. He starred alongside the famous singer-actor Jim Reeves.
Ja, ek sê ek het dit geniet, toe hulle my vra saam met hom. Ek was natuurlik in daai prent genoem Punchy. Nie dat ek van die woord hou nie, maar toe hulle sê hulle betaal my daarvoor, toe myn ek nie dat hulle my nie. En ek het uit Jim Reeves die nice man wat ek in my lewe ontmoet het, wat ek 'n bietjie sleg oor gevoel het. Dus ek mix my taal en al die ou sê altyd, "Kom praat jy so deur mekaar Afrikaans?" Sê ek, "Wel, is the easiest way." Jy weet, daar's baie makliker woorde in Engels as Afrikaans. En toe hy terug in Amerika toe na die film, toe praat hy beter Afrikaans as ek.
Although starting to show the wear and tear from many years in the ring, Holt remained a devastating puncher.
Die twee het 'n tydjie geneem om mekaar te meet en op te som, en die groot skare toeskouers het nog nie kans gekry om behoorlik reg te skuif nie, toe Holt sy teenstander planke toestuur. Die skeidsregter het begin tel en Rocco het skaars 'n spier verroer totdat hy uitgetel was. Die geveg het net 1 minuut en 51 sekondes geduur. Geen wonder dat die Holt-mense jubelend was nie.
For the first time since Jimmy Elliott, Holt's reign of supremacy in the South African ring was broken. Few South African boxers have been blessed with so much natural boxing talent as Hottie van Heerden. Van Heerden was a smooth southpaw who could punch with either hand. Against the likes of Yvonne Preberg, a highly rated European light heavyweight, Hottie showed that he was a potential world champion. Now in the twilight of his career, was no longer up to handling a versatile boxer like Van Heerden. He was extremely careful not to take any risks in winning an uninspired points decision. Van Heerden's wild lifestyle and lack of dedication, which professional boxing demands, caused him to waste his talents. and the hope which was placed in him never materialized.
It was a narrow decision, and with little popular acclamation, it went to Hottie and Heerden.
I thought this boy was one of the greatest fighters this country ever produced as a southpaw. And if he had to look after himself, he would have been world champion. But that's how it goes.
Holt proved that he was still a dangerous puncher by outclassing heavyweight Dan Becker, who was one of the best amateurs ever produced in South Africa.
Die zwaargewicht kampioen is echter een moedige kerel en hij staat op om weer in die harde feesten van Mike Holt vast te lopen. Mike's vechtinstinct is nou aangewakker en dit spelt gevaar voor enige persoon wat samen om in die kreet is. Zo begint die 7e ronde. Dit is de telling van 7. Dit is nou bijna bij de einde voor Becker. Oh, Mike Holt zijn linkerhand op. Hij is weer daar voor 7 tellings en die keer maakt hij gebruik van die touwen om een beetje te stutten. Maar zoals ons gezegd, Becker is een moedige kerel en hij is weer op. Net om weer in die linkerfeest van Mike vast te lopen. Zes tellings en die verstandige scheidsrechters zijn tot zover. Mike Holt is die winnaar en mondelijk zal hij nou een ideaal verwezenlijk zien die voor Archie Moore te ontmoet.
Britain's Stan Cullis was Holt's next victim, and after struggling to master the tough and clever Billy Lotter, he pounded the national heavyweight champion Gerry de Bruin into defeat. De Bruin was a tough, courageous fighter who'd won a bronze medal as a 20-year-old at the 1956 Commonwealth Games, and certainly not an easy opponent.
By round 11, it was only de Bruin's fitness and courage that kept him upright. His feet are wide apart, always a bad sign in a boxer. And when Holt rushes him, he is tumbled through the ropes by the now urgent champion, who has paced the fight very skillfully. Back in the ring, de Bruin is mauled on the retreat and is nearly driven through the ropes again. He is very, very tired by this time, and only courage keeps him on his feet. The 12th and final round sees Holt poised for the kill. He has softened his man with a sustained barrage to the body, which brings his guard down and overcomes a solid left to make de Bruin stumble and crumble. The clinching blow is a left hook square to the chin, which sends de Bruin sprawling. He is still hanging onto the ropes when referee Bill Godfrey throws his arms wide to signal the fight is over, only 20 seconds before it is due to end. A win on a knockout, not a technical knockout, and Mike Holt, who has plans for fights in Italy, does a jubilant dance round the scene of one more triumph in his long career of 75
Holt had
fights.
5 more fights, including a points loss in a non-title fight against the newly crowned light heavyweight world champion, Willie Pastrano. What if he'd been given a chance earlier?
Dis moeilik om te sê hoe jy teen 'n ou sou beklei het. Kyk, as ek hulle my vrou, hoe sou jy teen daai ou beklei het? Kom ons vat nou maar Muhammad Ali. As hulle vra hoe sou jy teen ons ou gesê ek donder hom. Ek sou hom gedonder. Jy sien, Archie Moore was 'n champion. As jy 'n kampioen is dit moeilik om hom te wen want hy het altyd 'n bietjie van 'n voordeel voor jou. Ek sou gelyk het om Archie Moore te beklei. Ek dink ek sou hom gedonder het. Maar nou dit bly daarby want ek het nooit 'n kans gekry nie, sê. Maar ek sê jou nou iets vertel. De Plooi, Gerry Coetzee, Koetser. Kon nie met my beklei. Nie op my bes nie. Nie een van hulle drie. Ek sou hulle al drie op een hand beklei. Ja, dit sal opwindend wees as ek 'n comeback maak. Ek meen, ek kan definitief my eerste geveg teen nou Tommy deploy vat. Want hy kan my nie seermaak nie. Dit sal 'n warm-up wees, dan kan ek Pierre Koetse tackle. En dan dink ek, kan ek retire met die geld wat hulle vandag kry, kan ek definitief retire.
Mike Holt, a true great in South African boxing. In the next episode of The Fighters, Die Hotlo van Vereniging. A great fighting family. And South Africa's second world champion.
Elimination championship fight. Thinks that he goes down again, it's all over. He cannot be saved by the bell.
It's all over. We've got a new heavyweight champion of the world.
No one could hold them back. Out in the heat they tried for the strong. They gave us hands of pride. When the world by hand meant to man, face to heroes alive in our memories, legends never die. Heroes alive in the world, you fought and busted our nation to
Seven world champions, 6 Olympic gold medalists, 9 Empire titles, and a host of boxing heroes. The Champions Arena, man against man, the ultimate test of strength, cunning, and courage. Join us now as we trace the path of boxing in South Africa from its birth up to our modern era of The Fighters. The 31st of May, 1961. After many years of struggle, the Afrikaner's dream was realized and the Republic of South Africa came into being. Boxing in South Africa was in a slump, but it was all about to change as a tall, sinewy welterweight turned professional in March 1962. Willie Ludecke electrified audiences with his lethal punching power, and his eagerness to turn every fight into a war made him one of the most exciting and popular fighters in South African boxing history.
Willie Ludecke, as I say, was a tough, left-hander with little boxing skill, but the fans got their money's worth. He was a credit to the sport. In fact, he was a main draw card.
Ludick won his first 4 fights in 9 rounds and took on Boerboel du Plessis for the national welterweight title in his 8th paid fight.
De gevecht duurt voort.
scheidsrechter en Duplessis' helpers maken einde daaraan.
The second round.
On November the 30th, 1963, he met Fraser Toweel, the youngest of the famous Toweel brothers, in the first of 6 encounters. Ludick won all the bouts in a rivalry which spanned 6 years. With the exception of the second, all were classic clashes of different styles. Toweel was a smooth boxer, quick on his feet and fast with his hands. It was usually Ludick's brutal punching power which pulled him through.
Met de laatste verpletterende linkerhakhouw teen die kin is Toweel zijn goor toetental uit. En die scheidsrechter begint tellen. Fraser Toweel het zijn man goed probeert staan, maar een groot applaus gaan aan die verwoede vechter van vereniging, Willie Ludecke.
Late in 1964, Ludick gained international status when he knocked out 2 world-rated fighters in a space of less than 3 months and 4 rounds. His opponents were Ralph Dupas and Oscar Miranda.
Miranda manages to push his way out of trouble, but he's hurt. And as he momentarily drops his guard, Willie flashes over his left and Miranda drops for the full count. Willie Ludecke jumps for joy at his 5th KO win in a year and passes another milestone on the road to a world title fight.
His next victim was the British champion Brian Curvis. Curvis did give him a tough fight, but lost on points. On August the 6th, 1966, Ludick met the champion of Europe, Frenchman Jean Josselin, in Johannesburg. At this stage, the world title was vacant, and the promoter, Dave Levine, tried hard to get the fight recognized as a world title bout. It was advertised as such and had the championship duration of 15 rounds.
Round 1, and neither boxer wastes any time in probing for his opponent's weaknesses. Josselin opens the score as he connects squarely with a perfectly timed right to the jaw, and the Vereniging southpaw drops for a count of 8. The final round, and a lethal left from Ludick sends Josselin crashing to the canvas. The brutal fight was unfortunately never recognized as a world title bout, and the price Ludick paid for it was far too high. Such demands can be made on the human frame, but only once in a lifetime. Josselin met Curtis Coates 3 months later to determine the ownership of the world title. Coates won on points over 15 rounds. Johnny Wood in the striped shorts was an incredibly tough middleweight from the East Rand. He was virtually impervious to punishment and went the distance with Ludick 3 times in the next 9 months, enduring everything the vicious puncher could throw at him. Their third bout, on July the 29th, 1967, earned Ludick the national middleweight title. Ludick then took 2 successive points decisions over Carmelo Bossi, who'd just beaten Josselin for the European Championship. Willie Ludecke from South Africa. Still a contender for the world title, but past his best, Ludick finally got his official shot 2 years late when he met Curtis Coates in April 1968 in Dallas, Texas. Ludick showed signs of the many battles he'd been through, and the fire which once burned so fiercely was beginning to dim. Shortly after his return to South Africa, Ludick lost his national welterweight title to Pat